Dr. Chilcutt, thank you so much for joining us today. This is such an important conversation, and I really feel privileged to be able to talk to you about some really sensitive topics, I think, around women in leadership. And so I think this is a really wonderful opportunity for us to learn from your vast experience with women in leadership as, you work with the Academy for Women in Leadership.
Mhm.
So can you talk to us about that? How did you get to your role now? And just talk about
Yeah.
your role.
Well, and I mean, Angela, I love what I do. I mean, it is one of those things where I think everyone, all of your listeners will know that life is not a linear path, right? It
Right.
is a circuitous route at best. And I I was a return to school person, kind of did not get my PhD until I was 40. I had children that were then teenagers. I mean, so I have been, with the majority of women who are always having to juggle. But I had a leadership position after that at the University of Alabama where I was a supervisor and I was a director of a program. And leadership has always been one of my areas of focus. And I've done
Mhm.
continuing education in that. But then years ago, I transitioned from that faculty position at Alabama to Johns Hopkins Carey Business School in executive education because I
Mhm.
love working with professionals.
Mhm.
And one of the colleagues that I have, Carly, Dr. Carly Ackley, and I really are passionate. She's an executive coach about women in leadership and
Mhm.
just recognize the needs that women have to be encouraged, equipped, empowered, and be with a group of other women on that same
Mhm.
journey. And so we created this academy and have loved every minute of it.
Right. And at John Hopkins, right? Which
Hmm.
is no slouch university. So
No.
the fact
Yeah.
that there is something like that at John Hopkins is so exciting. And I think we live in a really exciting time where
Mhm.
women are finding themselves in more leadership roles and interested in moving up in their careers. And so I can't wait to dive into this conversation and try to learn as much as we can in this time.
Yeah, and I do want to say, right, this is executive education at Johns Hopkins. So something like the Academy for Women in Leadership, it is an open application process. So we have external women from all over the United States that sign up for this academy. And so it's, it is with the
I love
university,
that.
but it's also an external and
Yeah.
it's just a really dynamic and fun place to be.
I love that you made that point. And yeah, I just feel like it's such a privilege to have you on the podcast to talk about this. So
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about it,
yeah,
and who knows what we'll
yeah.
uncover.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, first things first, you are known for your expertise in executive presence. And I don't think that that's something that we are intentionally think about enough, or we're kind of
Yeah.
scared to think about it. So, can you tell us what it is? And then why does it matter so much to mom entrepreneurs and women
Mhm.
in leadership?
Yeah, I think that everybody has that idea of executive presence and they think of something like Mad Men, right? Remember that
All
show
right.
of, the guy who has, machismo and charisma and,
Hmm.
exudes power in negative and positive ways.
Right.
But what we know about executive presence is that for anyone, it's the ability to engage, align, and motivate or influence people to action, right? And
Mm.
so it really is that. Think about that. It's a leader's ability. Who are the leaders that you admire and want to follow and work with?
Hmm.
That's what executive presence is. It's
Hmm.
that presence that is trusting, that we have confidence in that person's ability to align the organization's values or their values as a leader with why we want to work with them and the work that
Hmm.
they're doing. And so it encompasses a lot of things, a lot of characteristics, those initial impressions like confidence and appearance and status and reputation, engagement skills, and then also long-term evaluations over time. With those are the evaluations you make of a leader as you work with them over time. It's so important for women Because I think women are conflicted about leadership.
Yeah.
And there's that, I know you've heard the term double bind, but there's
Mm-hmm.
this double bind with women where we're supposed to exude confidence and power and own our decisions and lead with authority. And at the same time, we are supposed to be nurturing and empathetic. And so it's a hard, skilled kind of balance. But
Mm-hmm.
the good news is for women, one of the best strengths that we have is relationship building skills.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a big part of executive presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm curious if there are any other aspects other than our most often intuitive ability to kind of bring relationships together and be that relationship
Mm.
builder. Are there any other kind of qualities that women might typically have that we underestimate are really powerful in our executive presence?
I think we are the things that when I coach women, the things that we typically generally work on are those external factors because
Mm,
they're worried about the showing up. And I know we're going to talk about that a
yeah.
little later. But what women are really good at is, yes, being authentic in relationships, having
Yeah.
interpersonal integrity, which is a huge key.
Mm,
It is also a key of executive presence to have values in action. And so
mm-hmm,
if women, especially business leaders, they've created a business that they are passionate about, they're doing work that they believe in, that is something that people are going to see and want to
mm-hmm,
follow
mm-hmm,
through with them on that
mm-hmm,
mission. So those are some of our strengths. I think
mm-hmm,
empathy, absolutely, engagement skills,
mm-hmm.
and empathy can be a great thing. It can also work against us sometimes as leaders.
Mm, hmm. Yeah, and I think too, if especially as a parent, if you show up with a value where you value family time and finding that
Mm,
work-life balance,
right.
I mean, I think everybody is seeking that. And if you can show up with that value and embody it in
Yeah.
what you do, I think that's really powerful and motivating a team.
Mhm.
So yeah, let's talk about first impressions.
Okay.
And helping to make them stick. They are so important.
They are.
So, how can we sometimes unintentionally send the wrong message? And
Mm,
how can we be more intentional about sending the right ones?
yeah. Okay. First of all, it takes 7 to 17 seconds to make a
I
first impression.
know.
7 to 17 seconds. So think
Yeah.
about you are walking into to meet a new client. You are, whether you're speaking to someone on the phone or virtually or face to face,
Yeah.
that first, before you don't even have 30 seconds to make that first impression. So let's break that down. This is where people kind of get tripped up about it. And I need everybody to just kind of have an open mind here. Okay. Have an open mind.
Okay.
In that first 30 seconds, what are people taking in about you? People are visual. People are
Mm-hmm.
visual. So
Mm-hmm.
do not discount the
Mm-hmm.
power of how you show up.
Mm-hmm.
It is so crucial. And when I coach women who are more introverts and they're softer, then I'm
Mm-hmm.
having to coach them just in their appearance of how to look more confident and kind of um, embolden that look a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
For women who are really determined and focused and can come across as aggressive, I'm working on softening them a little bit. So there is that spectrum, but we
Right.
do have to think about people are visual. So first of
Mm-hmm.
all, don't create distractions.
Mm.
Look the part. I mean, it really is, you can have your style, you can be authentic to who you are,
Mm.
absolutely 100%. But do think about people are taking you in and consuming you. The
Mm-hmm.
first way they're consuming you is that visual representation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it's, those evaluations over time can undo that, right? If
Mm-hmm.
if we're making positive impressions over time, they'll learn more about us. But we want to make strong first impressions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here is the tip for your listeners or viewers. This is the first exercise I give everyone, okay? Whether it's in executive education or coaching,
Mm-hmm.
to do these two things. Number one,
Okay.
think about this, put on your professional hat.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were to go around and poll your clients, your colleagues, the people that work for you management, whoever, and I were to ask them to give me 3 adjectives that describe you. Okay, think about that. Write down the 3 adjectives that you think people would currently use to describe you. And this is in any way, whether it's, how your confidence, whether it's your actions, attitudes, behaviors, whatever. So write down 3 adjectives, then take a moment, because the reality about executive presence is that we have to be strategic. Okay, there is real intentionality here in creating the perceptions that are authentic to you and your values as a leader, but that you want people to perceive you as, right? And so take a moment, think about your best version of your professional self. Maybe it's that position that you want to rise to. Maybe it is, what do you look like when you're your most successful self? And write down 3 adjectives that you would most desire people to use when describing you. Now, you may end up with some that are the same, and that's fine, right? But you may have some that are stretched. You're just stretching that a little bit. Great example is sometimes people say that, I'm creative, but I want to be seen as innovative. Or maybe I'm reliable, but I want to be seen as strategic. I mean, so we have to just kind of have that stretch. Well, you take those adjectives and then you think, okay, how does a person that exudes these adjectives, how do people consume them, right? How do they see their attitudes, their actions, their appearance, and all of that? And that is the first step in executive presence, just taking a moment to define the types of impressions you want to make as a leader.
And I think it's also important to note that what you're getting at is all of these things can be learned, right?
Yes.
And there is this sense that either you have it or you don't. And I run into that a lot. And it's like, no, it's actually a skill that you can acquire. So I really love that. Once we get past kind of the fear of being critiqued or critiquing ourselves, it's hard.
Yeah.
That's where the growth happens.
That's right. Well, and but it's a wonderful thing to think about. The best leaders, male, female, the best leaders are people with a lot of emotional intelligence. And that's why people listen to podcasts like yours. That's why, because they are in a growth mindset, right? So we're thinking about, what is my next? How do I want to grow? How do I want to continue to learn? It's the same thing. All right, where am I now? Where do I want to be? Those are the only 2 questions we ever need to ask ourselves. And then push ourselves a little bit to, maybe it is refining a skill. Maybe it is thinking strategically about, what we're doing, what we're putting out there.
Right. And once you learn these skills, I think you make it look easy, and people don't appreciate the intention that you do put into things. So even more reason that it's so great to have this conversation. So along with leadership is oftentimes public speaking opportunities, which is one of the top things that we fear the most. It's up there with death.
Correct. It is.
So what can we do to, calm our nerves and feel like we belong in that moment, and we are absolutely trusted experts in what we're about to help other people understand and learn when that time comes?
You're right. Communication skills is one of the hallmarks of executive presence. And every time that you have the opportunity to share ideas, whether it's leading a meeting, giving a project update, giving a formal presentation, you have a moment to impact and influence that audience, right? To be seen as that thought leader. You're correct. 75% of the population has some form of public speaking anxiety. That is that's according to the National Institutes of Mental Health. I mean, it's a real thing, right? Don't feel like you're the only one.
True.
And so there are 2 things. Number 1, preparation, right? There really are processes to putting together an informative presentation, whether it's a project update or a brief or a persuasive pitch. I mean, I'm talking about like 1, 2, 3 organizational steps.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you know those, then any presentation that you're giving, anytime that you have that opportunity to give a speech or to speak in public, you can refer back to that process and say, okay, how do I organize my information? Because part of that anxiety is just organizing, right? Does this message make sense? Is it going to connect with my audience? And then the second thing, which really has a lot to do with that anxiety, is practice. The more you practice, and I know everybody's heard this, yeah, but if you can talk it out, talk it to yourself in the car to work, speak it into your phone and listen back to it, the more you practice and say it, you don't want to memorize any kind of speech or presentation because that doesn't come across as authentic, but you're comfortable with that information. It's okay to make yourself notes. For the love of Pete, do not put everything on a PowerPoint slide and read it, right? You'll put everyone to sleep. Don't do it. Don't do it. Make it interesting. But be the presenter that you would actually want to listen to. Be that person. So before you speak, one of the most pivotal things you can do, and I used to tell students this all the time at the university, before I would go and lecture to 250 undergraduate students, who half of them were unhappy about being there. And I was trying to be the most dynamic person in the world and keep it interesting for 50 minutes. But I would have to go off by myself and just take a moment and almost like meditate in a space and transfer the thought of like, this is all about me. Because that's where the anxiety comes from, is that this is a social evaluative situation. We know, I'm not going to tell you you're not. We know that we're being judged in this moment. And so then we put so much pressure on ourselves because we're in our heads about what are people thinking. If you've got a clear message, you feel good about the preparation, you've practiced it a little bit, before you go and do that thing, take a moment, tell yourself, this is not about me. This is not about me. I know what I'm doing. This is about them. I want to be a gracious communicator, and I want to make this presentation or whatever interesting for them. That's the goal, not for me to look good. If you can flip that mindset a little bit, it helps you focus the energy in the correct direction. And the other thing is, you are not going to ever eliminate all of those nerves. If you do, it comes across as really flat and boring. So transfer those nerves and say, okay, I'm going to take that nervous energy and I'm going to create enthusiasm for the topic. Because once again, that's what people want to see. So just shifting that energy in a way that's going to work for you, not against you.
Those are such great tips. I used to be an adjunct, and I would teach for 3 hours, and it was the most exhausting experience of my life.
It is draining beyond belief,
Yeah, it really was. But I love your advice. And I often say that to people I talk to. It's like anytime when you're feeling that gravity of the moment on yourself, turning it around to serve can really help take the focus off of you. And that's really at the heart of, that moment where you feel like you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, but
that's right.
And your brain doesn't know the difference. But I really love those suggestions. And I know that imposter syndrome really is a huge monster in those moments when we're feeling the spotlight on us. And that is a topic that my listeners love to hear about, because we all have imposter syndrome at one time or another. And I'm sure that you talk about it a lot with the executives that you help coach. So what are some insights that you might have to help us manage that better?
Yeah, you're right. Everyone faces imposter syndrome. I believe everyone does. I mean, I would be so surprised. There have only been a couple of moments where someone has said to me, I don't have that. I'm like, okay, I don't know what that says about you, but okay, right? Because we know that even the most accomplished people have experienced thinking, am I worthy to be in this space? is this a mistake that they've let me in here? We
Yeah,
all have, right? I mean, we were
right,
getting accepted to something, whatever that
right.
thing is, an association, a graduate school, whatever. And
Yeah.
thinking, did they make a mistake? Oh my gosh, they don't know. They don't know that I don't know.
Yeah.
But number one is just recognizing this is normal.
Yeah.
Number two, what I like to do is have people make a list of what are their strengths, what are their
Hmm.
talents, and what are their accomplishments.
Hmm.
Many times
Yeah.
we are so busy doing the thing that we forget to stop and take stock
Yeah.
of why we're in the room.
Hmm.
It's because of our past accomplishments. It's because
Yeah.
we're really good at certain things. And one thing they found out studying imposter syndrome is that it's those accomplished people who question why they're there because of their strengths. They think that,
Mm.
let's say that you're really great at, I don't know, data analysis. Now, I couldn't do that
Hmm.
if you paid me $1 million, right? But someone who's really good at something thinks that other people are good at it too.
Right.
And so that's what they found is that we kind of transfer what's easy for us that, well, this must be easy for a lot of people.
Hmm.
So taking stock of what are my accomplishments, what are my strengths, what are my talents,
Hmm.
and recognizing for a minute, okay, there's a reason I'm here. There's a
Hmm.
reason I'm doing this thing.
Hmm.
But what I love working with leaders is you're if you're always pushing yourself a little bit, you're always feeling a little insecure.
Hmm.
But that insecurity is necessary for taking those risks for growth. And
Right.
so just recognizing it's a normal part of the process and I'm growing and this is good.
Hmm. Yeah, all of that is true for sure. And you're so spot on. We often just don't think in those moments all that we did to
That's
deserve to
right.
be there and own the moment and own. I've had a few of those moments on this podcast. Like, what?
Yeah. Well, and Angela, to your point, have you read the memoir by Ina Garten?
I haven't.
You know, The Barefoot Contessa.
Hmm.
Okay, I just finished that book.
Oh, yeah.
So interesting. She talks about
Hmm.
receiving an award
Hmm.
and and it's, very prestigious. There are stars in the room and I
Hmm.
guess it's from her cooking show. I'm not sure, but
Hmm.
anyway.
Yeah.
And she gets up there to make this speech and she talks about luck the whole time. I was just really lucky. I was where I was and the time and
Mm.
this was happening, blah, blah, blah. And the
Yeah.
person who was handing their award came back and said, you weren't lucky. You worked your behind off. I
Yeah.
mean, you
Everybody
showed
loves your
up.
recipes and your
Yeah.
cookbooks
I
and
mean, well, you should read her story. I mean, it is
mm.
amazing
Hmm.
story of a woman who at every single turn, starting young in life, was just always accepting challenges,
Mm.
never taking no for an answer.
Hmm.
And she said she sat down in the audience and someone else, kind of poked her and said, yeah, that wasn't luck. Own your success.
Yeah.
And I think as women, we also have a harder time accepting and acknowledging what we do well
Hmm.
because we don't think that that's humble, right? We
Yeah.
we want to be seen as being
Hmm.
humility and all of that.
Hmm.
I hate to say it, I
Yeah.
don't think men necessarily feel that way all the time.
Right.
They're a little more willing to embrace their accomplishments.
Yeah. And I mean, getting back to Barefoot Contessa, she's an alumna of GW just like I am. And
Oh,
so, yeah, we often don't uh give ourselves credit for things. And like you
that's right.
said, I think we're taught not to outshine other women
Hmm.
or anyone else in the room, and we're not taught to, sell ourselves or think so much about what it is we're really good at.
Yep.
So yeah, I often tell people like you have a vision board for your goals, but also have a vision board for what you've accomplished.
Hmm.
Have that because we do forget it. So
I love that.
I
Yeah.
think that's so important. But one of the things too that I think that we often feel that's going to get in the way, like shining too bright,
Mm-hmm.
seems we're not going to be authentic. We're not going to be ourselves. We have to choose between, being seen as overly confident or our real selves. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't think that we have to choose. We can act,
Right.
we can own our accomplishments, we can be professional, and we can also be authentic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what advice do you have for women who are trying to strike that balance and own who they are, but also feel true to themselves? If that makes sense. Hopefully that that makes sense.
Yeah. uh, I think some of the mistakes that women fall into,
Mm-hmm.
and it may be easy to start there, is that we want to be so authentic and we want to be so relatable and we want to be
Mm-hmm.
so transparent that then we don't create enough of a professional distance
Mm.
if we're in a
Mm.
leadership position. Does that make sense?
I think it
And
does. Yeah.
I think teams, if you're a business owner, if you
Mm-hmm.
are, you're a leader, you're leading a team in any kind of um, profession,
Mm-hmm.
think for a moment back, kind of like we talked about with that audience and public speaking. What does a team really need? They want somebody, yes, that's approachable, that they can trust, that they understand what their values and vision is, but they also want somebody who they see as a leader and is professional. So
Mm-hmm.
creating enough professional distance so
Mm-hmm.
that you feel confident still clearly expressing what you need from people, holding them accountable,
Mm-hmm.
because we can fall into traps of being so relatable that then it's hard to lead.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And I think it is a very fine line.
Yeah.
We don't, and for instance, I think, especially when it comes to social media,
Mm.
people can feel like they have to share everything in their life
Oh,
to
don't
be
get me
relatable.
started.
Yeah.
You do not want to hear what I have to say about it. Probably not.
But yeah, I think it takes a lot of discretion, and then I
Yes.
think you have to learn overstepping that discretion.
Well, okay. So as far as social media, I mean,
Yeah.
this is a huge rant for me
Yeah.
because one of the things in executive presence is status and reputation. And
Mm.
I remember as a professional at the university, really kind of at the beginning of all of this social media stuff, right?
Mhm.
And faculty saying, well, that's my personal life. And this is my professional. And I'm like, there is no such thing
Mm.
because everything bleeds.
Yeah.
Everything bleeds over. People consume you in any way that they can
Mhm.
consume you.
Yeah.
And this is why it's so important to go
Mhm.
back to the drawing board, right? And say,
Mhm.
okay, how do I want people to view me? What are the impressions I
Mhm.
want to make professionally? Understand that those can't be counter to what I put out personally.
Mm.
It's not like you can't
Mhm.
do that, but you don't want to. I'm just a big proponent
Yeah.
of not oversharing, period. Um,
Right.
really having a professional persona,
Mhm.
LinkedIn,
Mhm.
limiting what you're doing everywhere else, unless it feeds into your business, unless it
Mhm.
feeds into who
Sure.
you are and what you're trying to do, great. But
Mhm.
you do have to recognize that,
Mhm.
yeah, you want to create the more confidence you want people to have in you as a leader, the more you really need to be intentional and strategic. And once again,
Mhm.
it does not mean that you are not authentic.
Mhm.
It's just that you're also strategic.
Mhm.
And, Carla Harris, I don't know if you know Carla Harris, she was a vice president of Morgan Stanley. She was a woman on Wall Street for over 30 years,
Mhm.
incredible woman.
Mhm.
And she's written 3 books. I would recommend to everyone her third book. It's called Lead to Win.
Mhm.
And in that book, in the second chapter, she also has this on Audible and she reads it. It's so fabulous. But she talks about how people really go about creating how they want to lead and
Mhm.
not assuming bad behaviors. from
Mhm.
another leader just because that's what they've experienced, but
Mhm.
really thinking about their values, who they are, what they want to
Yeah.
convey, and being intentional about that. So, yeah,
Mhm.
you can be authentic, but don't be so authentic that there's no professional, you know,
Yeah,
distance.
you still want to be respectable and for people to take you
Yeah,
seriously, honestly. So, yeah. So again,
I know
it's
it's
just
hard.
all about
It's a
it
hard,
is,
yeah,
but it is
we could talk
it's
for 2 more
all
hours about that.
intentional, I think,
Yes.
is the overarching theme is that there's a lot of intention in this. And I
Yes.
think men have kind of learned a lot of these behaviors from each other for a long time in leadership positions and
Mm,
have been invited into the boardroom and have been at meetings and have just observed these things. And so I think, for many, like I said, a lot of leaders make it look easy and don't show the intentionality in what they're doing.
mhm,
And so, yeah, just that reminder that you can learn it, be intentional. And so we talked about it a little bit earlier about how important communication skills are,
mhm, mhm.
and especially as a leader, but you're not going to be on a public stage every day probably, but you're going to be communicating with your team, you're going to be
Right.
communicating with your clients. And so how can women leaders um, collaborate and communicate more effectively, do you think?
Number one, be okay, learn. And once again,
Mhm,
to your point, everything is learned. It's a
mhm,
skill. We didn't learn all this in school.
mhm,
Okay. But become comfortable
mhm,
clearly articulating what you need from others.
mm, mm.
Because think about this, people that you are leading, they want a clear path. They want to know
Mhm.
what's expected of them,
Yeah.
so whether that's a task or
Mhm.
a goal, be okay clearly articulating what is it that I need? Why is this important?
Right.
And by when? Because
Mhm.
the more that we create um, clear expectations, the easier it is for people to follow us. And a
Yeah.
lot of times where women especially are afraid of being direct about this is what we need to
Mhm.
do, this is when we need to do it by, this is why we need to do it right, this is what I
Mhm.
expect, because
Mhm.
they don't want to micromanage. But what they end up doing is not being really clear about what they
Mhm.
expect. And
Mhm.
then the people that are following them are trying to fill in the gaps. And
Mhm.
that's where that miscommunication comes in. That's where
Mhm.
that potential conflict comes in because people haven't been given clear enough directions.
Mhm.
Um, the second thing is, be really intentional once again about how you communicate.
Mhm.
Instead of sending 5 emails, think about, okay, could this be a 10-minute virtual meeting with everybody in the team that is, hey, instead of sending the 5 emails, I just want everybody to get this information at the same time, be able to ask me questions, clarify what's going on, because we are competing for other people's attention. People are in information overload.
Mhm.
They're getting crazy amounts of messages in a variety of channels all the time.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
how do you cut through that noise?
Mhm.
Is thinking about what am I trying to communicate? Why is it important to that person or that team or that
Mhm.
client, whatever? And then what is the best channel to do that? Is it face to
Mhm.
face? Is it a phone call? Or is it an
Mhm.
email?
Mhm.
So, being really methodical about your communication and prepare and think about it is going to help people a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, such great points. Communication is so hard, but I think what I find with women is they often haven't been in a position where they've been asked what they want. So they have
Mm,
a hard time communicating that, and the people pleasing that we're so conditioned
uh-huh.
it's like this wall when
Well,
people
you're,
just want
you're
to
right.
know what you want and then we can do it.
Yes, Angela. And
Uh-huh.
this
Uh-huh.
goes back to our previous conversation. The more that you've created, that you've allowed there to be professional distance, and you feel comfortable saying, hey guys, this is what I need. This is what we've got to accomplish this week. Dot, 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 dot. The more you break down that wall from a professional, once again, you're approachable, you're authentic,
Mhm.
right? You value interpersonal relationships, all of that, boundaries, all, all are valuable, but you've kept enough professional distance that you still are in that role as a leader and
Mhm.
you feel fully within your right
Mhm.
and what your role is to be able to communicate clearly.
Mm.
But you're right, a lot of times we haven't been asked, but we do need to learn how to
Mhm.
communicate well so that people feel empowered to do the
Mhm.
things that we need them to do. We have to
Mhm.
equip them, but how do we equip
Yeah.
them? We equip them with information.
Yeah. Now, before we wrap up, I want to
Yeah.
make sure we also talk about your own journey in becoming a coach, and you've been an educator and you're a leader yourself. So, what's some advice that you wish somebody had given you earlier in your journey? And what are maybe some things that you think women need to hear?
Yeah, well, the advice, I know that women need to hear this because I hear it all of the time
Yeah.
in the academy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think earlier in your career, it's easier to find those people that are mentors.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you advance within a career, we become the mentors, we
Mm-hmm.
become the advisors, and we don't necessarily continue to seek other people. And I find that with these women who have risen to mid to senior level leadership positions, they're now mentoring and advising and being that for everybody else, and they don't have anybody. And I have found that if that's the one piece of advice I can give is that you always need somebody that you trust, you admire as a leader, and that you can go to and get sound advice, feedback, that they're objective, that they're going to tell you hard truths, but that those people are going to change over your lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm.
The mentor you had at 20 is not the one you're going to have at 30 or at 40 or 50 or depending on the role that you're in. But we need that support. And that's that's another thing, whether it is one mentor or a group of women,
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing that the academy really provides is a space for a month. These women are with each other and are able to share experiences and encourage one another and oh, this thing happened to you too, and how did you handle that? So we do need other women. And sometimes, hey,
Yeah.
look, your mentor might not be a woman.
Mm,
I mean,
yeah, fair enough.
I have had incredible mentors in my life that were strong men who were incredibly successful,
Mhm,
who were invested in me, and you know that I will forever be grateful to. So,
mhm.
you know,
I love that. So much good information and insight and wisdom shared. I appreciate it so much. Where can listeners connect with you and learn more about the Academy and be in your
anything else?
orbit?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
My space is LinkedIn.
Uh-huh.
So if people want to connect to me or follow me, either one, and honestly, I'm very, very responsive, but also feel free to just message me because I check it. Ask me for resources. If you want templates for how to put together presentations, I have those. I'll just send them to you for free. I mean,
Wow.
really, I mean, I'm all about sharing information. So if you want presentation outlines, I'm
Mhm.
happy to send them. If you want a PDF about what executive presence is, I'm happy to send that. Um, but yes, I mean, of course, we're always happy to have you at
Yeah.
Hopkins for executive education, but reach out to me there. As I said, follow or connect.
Yes.
Anybody can connect to me or message me. I'm happy
Love that.
to be a resource.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chilcutt. It's been a great conversation, and I just feel like I learned so much. I
Well, I enjoyed
appreciate
it.
it.
I enjoyed it,
Yeah,
Angela. I
yeah,
appreciate being asked on. I really do.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.